Welcome to the Real Film Nerds Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Real Film Nerds Podcast. I am your host, as always, Matt Hinshaw. With me, my good buddy on the other side of the world, Mysterious Mike.
Hey, everyone.
So, Mike, you're a bunch of boys making models out of balsa wood. You don't have anything under control. That is a nice little quote from the movie we're talking about today. And Mike, I know this film is probably near and dear to your heart, much as it is mine. What film are we talking about?
Well, today we're talking about The First Man. And this movie is directed by Damien Chazelle and written by Josh Singer. It's starring Ryan Gosling, Claire Foy, Jason Clarke, Kyle Chandler, Pablo Schreiber, and it's about a look into the life of the astronaut Neil Armstrong and his legendary space mission that led him to become the first man to walk on the moon on July 20th, 1969.
So, Mike, what are your first impressions of First Man?
It was super intense, and I really liked it. I'm not 100% sure if some of the family dynamics that are represented in this movie are 100%, but all the stuff with the pilot, like kind of Neil Armstrong being like a test pilot, and then his career as an astronaut are just awesome. Like, that stuff just seemed to me it was amazing, and it just showed how hard of a job that being an astronaut really is. And I love that. I loved it because I felt like I was in the pilot's seat, and that was great.
Nice. Well, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I thought it was very well done. I liked the acting quite a bit. The cast was incredible, to say the least. There's a lot of well-known faces in it, such as Kyle Chandler, Pablo Schreiber, Ryan Gosling, obviously, Claire Foy. Just even the secondary characters, but in real life, they're not secondary. They are full-on astronauts. In this film, they're secondary characters, are played by some very recognizable faces, and I enjoyed that. I thought that was good. I thought it brought the whole film up a level. I thought the cinematography was fantastic, including the shots that are here on Earth. I thought it was done very well. I throw in a lot of questions throughout a lot of the family dynamics as well. I do know that Neil Armstrong's two sons did consult a lot on this film, but this movie was mostly based on the autobiography. Well, not autobiography, just biography of Neil Armstrong by the same name, which his sons also contributed a lot, but Neil was still alive back then and actually contributed a lot to that, obviously. But I don't know. They went on and on and on about the family stuff a lot, which is nice. It's interesting. It's a side you don't see a whole lot. I personally wanted to see a little bit more of the stuff going on in NASA and the space missions and, things like that. I learned some things from it. I loved how they opened the film. They opened it totally not how I thought they would have. And it's a little project, unless you're a big aviation fan, you probably don't know much about. It was the X-15 project, which spun out of the X-2 project, I believe. It was either the X2 or X1, I don't remember, where they dropped a plane from back in the day, the X2 was not a B-52, it was a B-29. And they dropped a rocket airplane from a B-29, basically trying to break the sound barrier multiple times over, and they did. But the X-15 spun out of that, and the idea of the X-15 was to get into the upper atmosphere, if not completely into space, if they could control it.
Yeah.
And they had I think they had somewhere around 200 successful missions with the X-15, and Neil Armstrong was one of those pilots, along with I think 10 or 12 other well-known pilots.
Yeah, no, that seemed so crazy because it gave you a clue of how kind of pioneering and a little bit crazy the pilots have to be to do it. And I loved it.
If you look at the X-15, it is basically a frickin' missile. You're stuck inside a missile hanging out on the wing of a B-52. You are completely at the mercy of this other pilot until he lets you loose, and then you're at the mercy of a missile. I mean, those things don't fly. Like, they look like airplanes, but they don't really fly. They go up and they come down. They don't really glide. They don't really, they're insane.
Well, I mean, essentially a rocket is a missile that doesn't have a warhead.
Yeah, it's the same thing. That's, I think, one of the reasons why, Neil Armstrong was so interested in going to space, along with getting up almost into space with the X-15. But he knew a lot more behind it other than just being a pilot.
No, he had a large engineering background. That was awesome.
Did you also notice that he was like the only civilian out of like the entire Apollo program? Like everyone else was military.
Yeah.
In one way, shape, or another.
He was a civilian, but he did have a military background. He did fly in the Korean War. They didn't talk about that in the movie, but he only did that for a little while. Like, there was something that was kind of like the GI Bill, but it's something different. I don't know. I read about it, but.
Yeah, but he wasn't currently in the service like everyone else was.
True. Yes. Which was a huge.
Is a whole scarier dynamic for his family.
Well, why would that be scarier?
If something happened and he's not military, the benefits aren't quite the same as if someone that's active in duty and dies on duty. It's different.
Oh, okay. All right.
Big time different.
Yeah, well, they didn't really. I mean, they highlighted that he was a civilian in the movie, but it didn't explain, I guess, some of those dynamics. And I guess it wouldn't, right? It's not going to do that.
Yeah. And they did cut some really important parts out of this movie that they did film, too.
Oh, yeah? Well, what did they cut out?
When he was in Houston, I think it was around 64, 65, his house burned to the ground with everybody in it.
What?
Yeah, you didn't know about this?
No.
Yeah, he woke up to the smoke alarm or fire alarm going off, or maybe just a smell or something, and his house was fully engulfed in flames, and he's rushing to get everyone out of the house. And one of the biggest quotes he kind of has is he got his wife and his first son out, and then he went back to go get his other son, Rick. And he said that is the longest journey he's ever made in his entire life, was going down that hallway. And this is a guy that went to the moon because he was rushing down this hallway trying to get his son out of his home that's burning to the ground.
Wow.
And I don't remember which astronaut was his neighbor, but one of the astronauts that I don't think he went to the moon with, but one of the astronauts in the program was his neighbor and actually came over and was trying to help get everybody out. And they shot that. You can actually find stills of it on the internet, but they didn't include it in the movie. And I was kind of surprised because that probably was not cheap to shoot.
Wow. Yeah. No, probably not at all.
But that had a very, very huge impact on Neil Armstrong and the rest of his life and going into the space program and things. Not clearly as much as you've seen in the previews, his daughter, but.
Yeah. No, it was. I really liked this movie. I thought Ryan Gosling,
No, he was the perfect pick. You couldn't have had a better actor.
He was really, really good. Because a lot of this movie is acting without saying anything.
Well, and that's kind of what Ryan Gosling's known for. Look at the roles that he's done. Like, look at his role in Driver.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that's kind of what he's known as, is being the, introverted, subdued actor. He's not the big flamboyant actor, and that was perfect for Neil Armstrong.
Yeah. No, he was awesome. I like this movie. It's kind of interesting how the movie, like, the scenes. Well, I don't. When are we gonna give away anything?
Well, I don't know, man, because it's a biographical docudrama is how I like to explain it. I mean, it's a docudrama. This is all stuff that's truly happened, that really happened, that you can go and find out anywhere. It's not a surprise. It's not, so I don't know, Mike, what do you want to do?
I don't know. I just kind of wanted to talk about some of the cinematography that's outside
Let's roll into it. We'll just start out. We'll just say, I guess we'll spoil it. I mean, the house burning down and stuff was kind of spoiling it, but it's not even in the movie. So, if you don't want it to be spoiled, just go ahead and fast forward, but you probably know the story of Neil Armstrong going to the moon. Spoiler alert, he makes it.
Yeah, I don't think that's the big spoiler. What I was going to highlight was...
Go ahead. We're going to roll into it. Go for it.
Yeah, what I was going to highlight was the scenes on the moon and landing on the moon, I thought were amazing.
Yeah, they were intense. They were really good.
I thought that was really, really well done. Even some of the parts where they just got into space. The only problem that I had, and this is probably going to be an issue with a lot of theaters, I was getting sound bleeding from other movies going on because it's absolutely silent.
Oh yeah, dude, I didn't have that problem.
Yours was
one of the benefits. Yeah, it was silent. There was no.
Oh man,
that's one of the benefits of going to
jealous.
Yeah, that's one of the benefits of going to the movie at 10 o'clock at night in Prescott, Arizona, because not a whole lot of people are going to go, especially on opening night. It was in the big theater too, which is, I think, a little bit more sound isolated than the rest. So even if we would have gotten sound from another theater, it would have only been one side.
Yeah.
So it was pretty awesome.
Well, I think I was hearing Venom or something, like some loud movie. And it was a little disappointing for me. But I mean, I understand that there's not a lot to do. Like, on a somewhat side note, I just watched a movie today, and the particular theater I went to, I don't normally go to it. And it happens to be in the flight path of the city that I live in, and so I heard jets.
Yeah, Intercourse, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I heard jets over and over in the movie theater, and I was like, "Yeah, that's not good."
Yeah, that's pretty lame.
Yeah, but
it's a bad spot for a movie theater.
That's what I was thinking. But
did you go to the airport strip club and bar afterwards though?
No, it was a little too early in the day. You don't ever want to get the day shift. You know how the day shift is. Like, that's like the C crew.
Yeah, but dude, you can always go there. Well, but it's a Saturday, so it's probably more like the B squad. But think about it. If you go during the day, say you go after the movie, it's like around lunchtime, you can always get the all-you-can-eat buffet. I mean, that's always good.
Yeah.
You haven't lived until you've dared yourself to try a cocktail shrimp off of an all-you-can-eat buffet at a strip joint.
Right. Yeah. Well, I missed.
It's right up there next to like skydiving and bungee jumping.
Yeah.
It really is.
I missed that opportunity today, but there's always more days, so I will look forward to trying that.
I figured you would have had that all planned out by now, Mike. I'm disappointed.
But but I really liked the moon sequence in this movie. I just really liked it. I like the way that it was shot. I liked the way that this movie was shot quite a bit. It was cool.
Yeah. It was good. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it very much. But, I have some issues here and there, but nothing too glaring. Like I alluded to it earlier, how I wanted to see some more NASA missions, and I wanted to see more things that went on, because they have Apollo 1, where the guys all die during testing. Yeah. And then it goes straight into Apollo 11 from there. There were quite a few missions between the guys dying and 11. They touched on it a little bit, but they didn't hit on it a whole lot. And I would have liked to have seen some more of that.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I would have liked to seen some more, since both of us are kind of space guys. Like, we enjoy space things. We've gone to space museums. We want to see space stuff, and we're excited about the new kind of space race that seems to be going on with SpaceX and this new company called Blue Origin. But
yeah, that's fun. That's fun to watch.
But it doesn't do some of the, because it starts out and you think you're going to see a lot of stuff with space. Like, when he first gets into NASA, they kind of show you him going through the test with, was it like 3 axes of motion and...
Oh, yeah, the vomit. Yeah. It's almost the vomit comet kind of test.
Yeah, and that actually plays into the movie later on, which is, I think, why they show it to you. But I would have liked to see more of that training and all the different... because I think a lot of the family dynamic that they represent in this movie didn't quite tell you that it's like, hey, Neil's gone, like, day in and day out, like, all the time, because he's training for all kinds of things. They don't really highlight that too much, but I imagine they didn't come home much, or they were home for a few hours and then they're back out training. Like, I don't. Yeah,
they were home enough to sleep, and that was probably about it for a lot of it.
I don't think they saw their kids much, because they were coming home after the kids are in bed, and then they would leave before the kids woke up. Like, I feel like just because there were so much things that had to be done and so many things that had to be taught, they just were gone all the time. And it didn't really highlight that in the movie, but I feel like that happened, because we were...
Well, of course it did. But you see Neil and the other astronauts interacting with their kids more often than not in this film.
You do.
They're all together at this and they're all together at that. Sure, some of those things that they're at are funerals, which is depressing as hell, but it's part of the job.
Yeah, and I think the times that they were showing us them hanging out was their, like, one day that they've had in this 4 weeks, or I think there's a couple times where they got some, like, R&R time, and so they go hang out a little bit, but, like, I don't think they had a lot of time to do stuff like that. I feel like, because we were such in the race with the Russians, every time the Russians were beating us, they show that a little bit in the movie.
Yeah, a tiny bit. They touch on, Sputnik, and then the big one was where they were showing the first man in space, and they're like, oh shit, because they were literally, like, on the verge of sending our first astronaut up to go into space. Not space, it was a spacewalk, I believe. Was it space or was it spacewalk? Well,
no, the big thing, we were about to do the docking. We were trying to do
there's that, but this was before that. This was before that. They showed it on, everybody, like, started looking at the TV and getting all pissed off and swearing and shit. But when they went and did the docking, they came back and they were like, tell the Russians to shove that up their ass, kind of thing. Because they got the docking done before the Russians.
Okay, well then there was
in
one
the movie,
yeah.
but there was something,
there was
and I don't know
some event.
that's what it was. It was the EVA. It was the EVA. It was the first time someone got out and did a spacewalk, I believe.
Oh yeah, that's what it was. Yes,
and they literally were going to launch like the next day or like the next week or something, and they see it at like a party or something or a barbecue, or they're all swimming or something. They're a bunch of them are together with their kids and stuff, and they flip on the news, and here comes these news headlines about how the Russians just did it, and that immediately like ruined the whole mood.
Yeah. I believe Edward Higgins was the astronaut who was about to do that, and he was like, "What the hell?" He was really pissed. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And it just seemed like no matter how hard they worked, how fast they tried to get things done, the Russians were kicking our ass.
Yeah. Yep.
Which, that would have been nice to see seeing a little bit more in there. But again, they were more focusing on Neil Armstrong than anything else. Like, I would have liked to have seen more about, I already talked about the Apollo missions. We saw a little bit of the Gemini missions, which was mostly just Neil Armstrong's missions, but there was a slew of Gemini missions.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And
there had to be.
One thing that they didn't talk about at all that I wish they really should have at least had a mention in was the Mercury missions, because the Gemini missions would not have even happened or even been started. They wouldn't even talk to Neil Armstrong about him coming on it as an astronaut if the Mercury missions weren't successful.
Yeah, they didn't talk about that. They glanced. I mean, they just glanced over some things. Like,
it is Hollywood, and they are trying to tell us this giant, huge, massive story in 2.5 hours.
Yeah, and they, in the movie, it didn't really highlight it, but it mentioned it. And it's just kind of like that. This movie is laser focused on Neil Armstrong.
But, yeah, and that's what it is,
But, like the Vietnam War, like it didn't really highlight the parallel that like space was kind of this awesome thing that was like a positive thing that we were doing. But it did show that there was also protests against the space stuff, which I thought was cool because I'm sure that happened as well.
I'm sure there was probably more than what they actually showed us.
But it was like when it actually happened, like when we got to the moon and stuff. I don't know if it emphasized how big and how crazy that was. I think it tried to, but I don't know if it kind of said that like this is the most watched broadcast ever, that basically everyone in the world was like in awe. And it
was something like 400 million people.
Yeah, no, it was like everyone who could watch it pretty much did.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. And then it even a little bit talked about Neil having to think about what he was going to say before he said it, if they made it to the moon. And that was incredible. But, a part in the movie which is actually really tense, and I'm not sure if it happened or not, was when he had to talk to his kids about before he left to go to the moon, that he might not...
I can answer that right now.
Okay.
Yeah, that happened. Like I was saying, his sons consulted on the movie, and they spent a year, or was it 2 years or something, working with the director and I think / writer, because I don't think the director writer was the same person.
No, it wasn't.
No, Josh Singer, right. And I know the two brothers worked with the director and the writer, I think on the phone or whatever, I don't know, specifically on that part, along with most of the movie, but specifically on that part, like they kept trying to remember what they said, how they said it, how their father reacted, what their father said, how they're like, for instance, one that they did point out that, the director might have taken a liberty with, but they don't remember, both of the brothers, was at the end where the one brother walked up and hugged his dad, and the other one walks up and shakes his hand.
Yeah.
And they both go, that could have happened, but we don't remember. I think we both hug. It could have been a hug. It could have been a handshake, but they're not sure. And they admit that the director kind of took a liberty with that, saying it was for sure a handshake. And they're like, we don't know. We just know we had some kind of physical interaction before we went to bed.
Okay.
But that really did, that conversation with his wife and the two boys sitting around the table and him being honest, saying, there is basically, from what they were saying in one of their interviews, is that their dad basically sat there and told them that there is a chance of him not coming back. He didn't blatantly say, I'm not going to come back. He said that there's a chance. He didn't say it was a slim one. He didn't say it was a big one. He just said there's a chance you might not ever see me again, kind of thing.
Okay.
And it was very serious, and, I don't know if his wife was the one that made him do it or not. They didn't touch on that. Again, it's mostly the sons that consulted on the film.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. But that, I mean, this movie's pretty much just intense the whole entire way. There's, I guess that's something that we should warn you about, is this movie is not, even when there's like big like victories or like celebratory areas, it's not really that like it's just so intense. Like even the end, after they get back from the moon and Neil's in quarantine and he gets to see his wife. It's like bittersweet.
Well, yeah, because all she wants to do is touch her husband and say congratulations or thank you or good job or I'm glad you're home or whatever, and she can't. The most she can do is do the old school jail palm on the glass.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a great way to end it. It was a very good way to end it.
Yeah, it's somewhat,
but it's tense.
Yeah.
The whole thing. Because you could tell she's kind of pissed, but she's also kind of excited. You can tell he's excited, but he's not going to express it because it's who he is. And
yeah. No, it was great.
Yeah. I really enjoyed this movie quite a bit.
Yeah, I just enjoyed the pilot stuff, like just seeing the stuff that they went through, like that's awesome, and it's just so like, and he had to make calls, and like throughout most of the movie, he kind of is like questioned about why he did the things he did, but it's like, hey, I'm alive here to tell you that I did it.
Yeah. Yeah, like the training on the lunar lander training vehicle that they had.
Yeah,
that blew up. He ejected and it blew up when it hit the ground.
Yeah,
that really happened.
Oh yeah, no, I know it did.
And if he analysts afterwards, after analyzing the video, because they videotaped it and everything, analysts afterwards. Even to this day, analysts today have looked at that video and said, if he would have waited even a half a second longer, he would have died. Like, he literally hit it, the eject, at the perfect moment. If he would have waited, he would have been dead. Because the chute wouldn't have opened right, and it wouldn't have, that exact altitude, that exact time, that exact speed, everything allowed him to get away and the chute to open properly and go away from the site, so he didn't get injured. Because that was one thing. That was one that they did say is Hollywood versus reality. When that happened, he wasn't injured at all. He didn't have any of that stuff on his face. He didn't have any bruising. He didn't have any cuts, nothing. He ejected fine.
Oh, so he ejected and he was completely just...
Yeah, he was fine. He might have had a sprained knee or something from hitting the ground from the parachute, but he didn't hit his face. He didn't get burned up. Nothing.
All right, so that was a little bit of Hollywood liberties, but I knew that had happened. That he was flying it and it had broken, and like I knew the fire had happened in Apollo 1, so I was glad that they showed all that stuff, because
and that's one that I didn't realize, because I remember a fire happening and astronauts dying, but I swore I didn't think it was the Apollo missions, and that just impacted me even more, knowing that it was literally like the Apollo missions. I thought it was either Gemini or Mercury when it happened. I didn't realize like they literally committed to using the Apollo spacecraft and the Apollo missions, and they're basically doing a dress rehearsal and they die.
Yeah, I'm with you as well. I didn't remember exactly which. Yeah, I thought it was Gemini as well, and then I was like, "Did they skip that? How could they skip that?" And then
right.
And then I was watching the movie,
the same thing.
And then I was watching the movie, the Apollo 1 mission, and then I was like, "Oh, it's right here."
Right, I did the exact same thing when I'm sitting there in the theaters. I'm like, man, aren't they going to make any mention about the 3 astronauts that died because they couldn't get the hatch open? What the hell is wrong? And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay. Now it makes a little bit more sense. I can't remember everything, but interesting tidbit though about Apollo 1. They still have that whole capsule at I think it's either at an Air Force base or at the Smithsonian or something. But they still have the full capsule and it's never been on display, ever.
Well, yeah, I mean, to me that makes sense. They wanted to study it, but I mean, right. I don't even see why they would destroy it, though. Like, I don't know. Like, maybe they just...
They're still holding on to it for significant historical purposes.
Yeah.
But interestingly, and I don't know if you know this, but the first time they've ever put anything from the capsule on display was 2017. They took the hatch and they put it on display at Kennedy Space Center.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know if it's still on display, but it's still, and it was in celebration, I guess not celebration, because it's not really a celebration, but the significance, it was the 50th anniversary of the fire.
Oh, okay.
And so that was 1967 when the fire happened, so 2017.
Wow.
So but they put the hatch on display and they open it up and it's in a display case and all kinds of stuff. And it shows you the 3 or 4 different levels of the hatch. But that's the first time anything from Apollo 1 has been on display.
Wow.
From the physical capsule, I guess you would say. Wow. The flight vehicle.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's other things, everywhere, but this is like something, actually from it. So anyways. All right. So not to end on a downer, I guess, but I'm going to roll into our next segment there, Michael, because that's a tough one to talk about, man, when they all died. And, it's purposeful, but it's still,
yeah.
Anytime you are doing something new, especially when it comes to fuel and space and flight and even cars, it's dangerous. And you got to go in there knowing those dangers. So, anyways, all right, Mike. So let's do it. Let's keep this rolling. How does the first man relate to the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
All right, so actor Corey Stoll was in this as Buzz Aldrin, and he is also in Ant-Man as Darren Cross / Yellow Jacket.
Nice. See, so our streak continues, Michael, or your streak continues.
Yes, it does. I mean, I really think that as Marvel keeps multiplying movies, my job will get easier, and there really is only a finite amount of actors and makeup artists and cinematographers that end up making most of the movies that we watch.
So that's why they should probably contact me and let me join one of these nice, wonderful productions so that I can make a good living and be famous.
Yeah.
I like it. I don't even need to be an actor. I'll be a grip or something.
Oh, yeah, that's the sound guys, right?
I think grips are lighting guys.
Oh, yeah,
Lighting
you're right.
and sound, maybe.
Yeah, no, you're right. Lighting guys. Yeah.
Anyways, I'll be a slave. It's fine. As long as I get a good paycheck.
Oh, all right. Well, cool.
That's all that matters, right, Mike? Paychecks are what matter in life.
No. You should.
Oh, I don't know. That's what I've learned.
You should like your job, but yeah, I don't know.
Whatever. I know the truth, Michael. It took me 37 years, but I know the truth now. All right, so, Mike, is there anything else you want to add about First Man? Because we've already spoiled it, but again, it's history. How do you spoil history?
Right. The only thing I would warn you about this movie that's outside of our ratings is a little bit sad. Maybe more than a little bit. It's kind of a sad movie.
It's depressing, that's for sure. It's especially depends on how you take the family dynamic and how everybody interacts. It's definitely sad on the multiple deaths that are in the film, but they are legitimate. They happen. They impact the characters, especially Neil Armstrong, repeatedly. So...
Yeah, no, I don't know.
I touched a little bit. You and I, discussing this through our text messaging before we started recording. I have a theory on it. I don't know how true it is, but Neil Armstrong's daughter dies pretty early in the film, and she had brain cancer. And they were trying to do anything and everything they could to try and save her, and it just wasn't happening. And for the little bit you knew Neil Armstrong before she passed, he seemed a lot more lively. He seemed a lot more talkative. He seemed a lot more extroverted. And then after her passing, he gets real emotional, and then that's pretty much the end of it. And so, as I was pointing out to Mike here, one of my theories was that it's almost like when his daughter died, he kind of died at the same time on the inside. And that's why he was so introverted and just didn't show emotion, was always quick to the point, because he had already had the most devastating thing ever happen to him in his entire life. And he's not coming back from that. Yeah. That's just one of my theories.
I don't know exactly if it was the next day or right away, but he seemed to go to work right quickly afterwards. And they were like, what are you doing here?
Right.
I don't know.
That was kind of sad.
I don't know if it was the next day. Like it wasn't clear, but what was clear was that it was very quickly after the death of his daughter, and yeah,
it was shocking to his coworkers that he was there.
Yeah,
and they point that out for sure. But anyways, that's just one of my theories, that it's almost, if that event in his life didn't happen, we might not have had the man that we had to take us to the moon.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the craziest thing was the just about unstoppable role that they were in on the Gemini mission.
Gemini 8. Yeah. That was insane, dude. And it wasn't even just a roll. I think they were going using the full 3 axes, because it was like almost end over end and rolling at the same time. It was almost exactly what they were simulating earlier on in the movie.
Yeah, which is why I think they showed that in the beginning of the movie. But it was like a foreshadowing thing. Very good movie technique. But oh man, like, that was so intense, and like...
I won't lie, dude. Me and motion sickness don't get along. I had to look away a lot at certain parts in this film because of shit like that.
Oh man, that was crazy. And then the fact that basically even if it wasn't quite as intense as the movie showed it, but I'm pretty sure it was because this is all very well documented. Any other pilot we would have lost him.
Well, yeah, and it shows that his co-pilot, or not, I guess you'd say co-pilot.
I think he was, I don't know if he was, it's like, I think Neil Armstrong was the commander, and I don't know what the other guy was. I mean, he was they have their different roles or whatever.
Yeah, but he was a pilot. He's also a pilot in the world, I guess you would say. He's clearly a flight person as well, an airplane pilot or whatever of some kind. Because almost all the astronauts initially were.
Yeah.
But he, as you see in the movie, he passes out. He's out.
Oh, yeah, no.
And Neil's sitting there fighting by himself.
Yeah, Neil's there fighting by himself. And he's really only got, I don't even know, like... He's probably only got a matter of seconds. This is one of those things, again, where he makes the right move and he decides to do something that NASA would have never told him to do, which was like to burn off some fuel to do something that ends up affecting their mission, but saves their lives. So,
right.
It's just crazy. And it's like, it was his like pilot instinct and training that like got him through it. Like, it's just crazy. Because, like, he was just a good pilot.
Yeah, not panicking, assessing the situation, doing what he could think of, even if it was the most outrageous thing, to try and get the spin to stop.
Yeah. There's a question in one of the press conferences, and I'm sure this was actually the question. And he said, "Neil, if you could take anything extra with you, or if you're taking anything with you, what would you take?" And he's all, "More fuel."
Oh, yeah, and that was talking about the Apollo 11 press conference, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's actually one of the things I think they did do, because I was reading a little bit, because both of us are space nerds, flight nerds, as, you pointed out earlier. The first the first moon landing mission, Apollo 11, I think they only spent like 2.5 hours on the surface, something like that.
Yeah, I believe that's correct. Yeah, 2.5 hours.
And a lot of that is because they didn't know if the spacesuits were going to hold up to the temperatures.
Oh.
And so when they went back with other Apollos, they started extending it, the amount of time they spent on the surface, whereas the very last Apollo mission, I think they spent like 22 hours and ended up bringing back tons of moon rocks and things.
Yeah,
versus the very first mission where it's like, okay, we got it, check it out a little bit, then get out of here, be safe.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense, because it's like they were just inching along, right? Every Apollo mission was to do something further, and like, so when it came to Apollo 11, it was like actually land, but like Apollo 10 was like go to the moon and like slingshot back. So it's like,
make sure you can do the trip.
Yeah. Like, so it was just building on each one. So it actually makes quite a bit of sense. But yeah, I mean, you're like, man, only 2.5 hours, but like, man, that must have been the most amazing 2.5 hours.
Oh yeah, I would think so. It still blows my mind that, just 2 missions later, Apollo 13, they're not even broadcasting the freaking launch and the moon landing or anything anymore because it's becoming routine. It's like, are you kidding me? We've only done this twice and the third one is routine? Are you high? That's so weird to me.
Yeah.
It's so weird to me.
Well, what's weird to me is here we are in 2018 and we haven't been back.
Oh, dude, don't even get me started on that. That was one of the biggest discussions I had after this, because as I was pointing out with the person that I went to the movie with, I have a smartwatch. It's not the world's best smartwatch. It's not an Apple Watch. It's an Android one, but I like it. It's a good smartwatch. And I was pointing out that the technology that is in this thing on my wrist is more technology, more advanced computer technology than what took us to the moon. It's on my wrist, and we have not been able to make it back.
Yeah. Yeah.
But again, a lot of that is kind of like some of the thinking might be, okay, well, we've been there. We've done that. Why should we go back? There's nothing for us on the moon that we need. Well, then, okay, how come we haven't been to Mars yet? It's 2018. It's literally almost 50 years since we set foot on the moon, and we haven't gotten outside of our orbit since.
Yeah. Yeah.
A human has
next year. It's 50 years, dude.
Yeah, it's
in July.
2019.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you don't want to know why I know that even more, but
why?
My parents were married in 1969.
Oh, okay.
May of 69.
Oh man, right before it happened. Wow. Okay.
Yep. And that's one of the things is my mom was telling me. Fine, I'll spoil it, but that's who I went to the movie with, was my mom. And it's real interesting seeing. I wish she would have been on here too with us, but it was real interesting because she lived through this. You know, she watched it on TV, and one of the things is that right after my parents got married, they moved to Florida, and they were out there at a Air Force base. My father was going through officer training school and all that, and he didn't even get to watch the moon landing. He might have watched it on a base. I don't know. I haven't asked him. But my mom had to watch the moon landing by herself because my dad was on the military base doing his thing.
Yeah.
And she was just at home. And so she was telling me, you know, vividly remembering watching it and things like that, and how no one had ever seen anything like that before. And it was just so earth-shattering and incredible. And it really made you feel proud to be an American and all kinds of stuff. So.
Wow. Yeah, no.
It was kind of neat to go with my mom to see this movie.
Yeah, that's cool.
So, all right, Mike, we can sit here and talk about this all night, but we are already coming up on more than our half hour. So we'll have to do another 10-minute one like last week's, right?
Yeah.
For the Harvest Horror Fest.
Yeah.
Harvest Horror Fest will just be 10 minutes long. Yes, this movie was good. Yes, it was fun. Okay, bye.
Sorry. I didn't have. I mean, I said what I thought I could say. I don't know, man. It's a lot harder to do it without anybody else to talk to.
Well, sorry, Mike. You're the one that wanted to do it, so I let you do it.
I did.
You could have done Dust Till Dawn, but I'm proud of you. You did it. You did it on your own, and you did a fine job. I think. I don't know. I didn't listen to it.
Yeah.
Was I supposed to listen to it?
No.
Did you swear?
Yeah, no, it's fine. Yeah, everything's
okay.
good.
No, dude, I listened to it. It was short. Come on. I had to edit it. I had to make it sound good.
So, all right, Matt. So, I guess we are definitely starting to run a little long, but what do you give The First Man?
How many reels do I give The First Man?
Yes. How many reels do you give The First Man?
I think this is definitely going to be a contender for Movie of the Year of 2018, at least for me, for sure. I might be a little biased. I love my airplanes. I love my space. I love everything that gets me off of this damn planet. So I might be a little biased, but maybe not. It was an incredible film. There was incredible acting. It was beautiful. It wasn't super crazy beautiful, but the cinematography was still outstanding. So I give First Man 4.5 reels.
Damn it, man.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I'm gonna give it 4.5 reels as well. I really liked it, man. It was
seriously. If this isn't in Movie of the Year and the Academy Awards, if it's not nominated, I would be extremely surprised. I know this director has been nominated and won. I think he won a couple times over. Yeah. No, he didn't win for La La Land, but he's most famously known for La La Land and Whiplash, which I couldn't make it through La La Land, but Whiplash was freaking incredible. I loved Whiplash.
La La Land was also good for the people that can make it through a musical.
Sorry, dude, I tried. I tried. I couldn't do it. I tried.
I enjoyed it.
But this movie is on that level, if not higher. But again, I might be biased.
Yeah, but it might be too early. I'm worried that for whatever reason, the Academy just seems to like not see any movies until about November. So I hope that it makes it on the radar. Last year, I think there was an exception. There was a movie that came out in the summer. Get Out was in there.
Yeah.
Wasn't it?
Yeah,
and
Get Out came out in the spring.
Yeah, that came out in the spring. So maybe they're a little better now. I don't know. It just seems like a lot of times movies that are before the I don't know what you call like awards season.
Yeah.
Are left behind.
And that's too bad because we've had some really pretty decent films. We've also had some pretty freaking mediocre films, especially over the summer. But this film, I don't want to say it's my film of the year yet, but for me personally, it's a contender. It's almost a perfect movie. Just those few little things I pointed out, but again, it would have made it possibly longer. If they would have added some of that, I probably would have given it a 5. If they would have had a little bit about Mercury, and they would have had some more about Apollo, and they would have cut back on the family dynamic a little bit, I would have given it a 5.
Yeah, no, it was great.
But it's damn close. I love this movie. I will probably be buying this on Blu-ray when it comes out.
Nice. Very nice. That's really awesome. Yeah, I want everyone to see this in the theater, if possible. I just love space stuff, and I would like people to understand more about space, and I just don't think people are as excited about space, and it's delivered so many neat stuff for us, like polarized sunglasses and titanium and all kinds of things. There's so many awesome things that have come from our space research and development that are everyday things that I don't think people realize. It's just amazing.
All right, well, there you have it, folks. Go see this movie in the theaters. I think you definitely should. Just even if it's for the last 20, 30 minutes of the actual moon landing and them flying in the rocket launch, well, the final rocket launch and everything. It's something else. It's if I had an IMAX, I would pay to go see it in IMAX for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so Mike, you want to talk a little bit about your Harvest Horror Fest coming up on Thursday? What are we going to talk about this week?
Well, I'm not 100% sure. Do you want to talk? I think we should talk about. I lost it. The one that we were going to do the week before.
Your brains are hurting?
Yeah. Dusk Till Dawn. I think we should do Dusk Till Dawn.
Yeah, that's what I was meant. That's what I was meaning. We got to do Dusk Till Dawn.
Yeah.
We teased it before, and then you did your solo cast.
Yeah. So let's do Dusk Till Dawn because
we need to do Dusk Till Dawn. Yep. The Robert Rodriguez film.
Yes.
Starring George Clooney.
And Quentin Tarantino.
And Danny Trejo.
Oh, yeah. And Danny Trejo. And Cheech Marin.
Cheech Marin. And Selma Hayek.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, all right.
Harvey
we'll look
Keitel,
for that.
right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Harvey Keitel. I mean, come on. You can't forget Harvey Keitel. He's incredible.
Yeah.
So, all right, folks. I don't have anything else, Mike. So why don't you go ahead and close this up, take us out of here. Just make sure to tell your friends, make sure to rate, review. Just, we're trying to grow here, people. And if you don't tell people about our podcast, we won't grow. We can only do so much with our social media.
Yeah, I echo those words. And, everybody, thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to The Real Film Nerds. Now don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Real Film Nerds. Now go out and catch a movie.